Even though Xia Hong could regenerate his arm with the help of spiritual medicine, it would take quite some time. Thinking of this, Mu Chen stopped pondering Xia Hong's fate. While he had severely wounded him today, he wasn't worried. After all, this was merely a clash between the younger generation. If the emperor of the great Xia dynasty found out, he would likely be angry, but if he intended to go to war with the great Luo heaven domain over it, the cost would be high. Now was the time when the ancient heavenly palace had resurfaced. All the top forces were watching closely, and it seemed unlikely that the Xia emperor would want to truly offend a top power that also possessed Upper Earth Supreme. 3 quasi-holy artifacts, willing to part with them to save his life. Mu Chen murmured to himself, suppressing his thoughts, then looked at the 3 beams of light on the giant hand of the great sun indestructible body. Golden light surged, forming a barrier that trapped the 3 beams inside. These 3 beams were, of course, the 3 quasi-holy artifacts Xia Hong had thrown out earlier. Among them, the Crimson Dragon Battle Spear and Crimson Dragon Armor formed a set of quasi-holy artifacts with extraordinary power. Xia Hong had used them to fight Mu Chen to a standstill earlier, and Mu Chen had been quite envious of their offensive and defensive capabilities. From Mu Chen's estimate, the value of these 2 quasi-holy artifacts far exceeded that of the sea-shattering pearl. And it was precisely because of their value that Mu Chen had been briefly distracted, giving Xia Hong a chance to escape. After all, facing these 3 quasi-holy artifacts, even Mu Chen had been momentarily tempted. If he hadn't intervened, these treasures would have flown into the hands of the surrounding powerful forces, sparking a chaotic scramble. Trying to snatch them later would have likely incited widespread anger. So Mu Chen had no choice but to act. He actually set me up. Mu Chen couldn't help but laugh lightly. Xia Hong was indeed clever, knowing exactly what price to pay to force him to stop. However, although he had been briefly outwitted, Mu Chen wasn't the least bit angry. He actually hoped for more such schemes, as the 3 quasi-holy artifacts had landed in his hands without effort. As Mu Chen murmured to himself, the sky around the training ground was filled with countless greedy gazes fixed on the 3 beams of light. Many eyes showed clear signs of greed. The total value of the 3 quasi-holy artifacts was likely at least 40 million supreme spiritual liquid, an amount that could not be considered trivial. Despite the greedy looks, no one dared to act, for both Mu Chen's incredible combat prowess and Lin Jing's unfathomable strength were enough to make the surrounding powerful forces hesitant to underestimate them. Mu Chen paid no attention to those gazes. With a wave of his hand, the 3 beams of light shot toward him, swirling around his body before landing in his palm. He toyed with the 3 beams of light, then stomped his foot. The massive body of the great sun indestructible body rapidly faded into illusion, eventually dispersing into a sea of golden light. Mu Chen, under the watchful eyes of countless onlookers, landed in front of 9 Nether and Lin Jing, extending his hand generously. Anyone who wants any of the spoils, feel free to take them. Lin Jing smiled faintly upon hearing this. She casually glanced at the 3 quasi-sacred artifacts, but soon lost interest. Given her status, even if they were true sacred artifacts, she could easily acquire them. To her, these artifacts, which were far out of reach for ordinary powerful figures, barely held any appeal. She simply shook her head, then waved her hand. The golden scroll embedded in the stone lion nearby was pulled into her grasp. "This is the real prize," Lin Jing said, lifting the golden scroll. She turned to Mu Chen with a smile and added, "Don't worry, once I collect the debt, I'll definitely give you half." Mu Chen grinned, silently mourning for the great Xia dynasty. With Lin Jing's status, even 100 million supreme spiritual liquids would hardly move her. But the novelty of collecting a debt seemed to intrigue her. Once this martial realm little princess got serious, the great Xia dynasty would be in trouble. As for Lin Jing's lack of interest in the 3 quasi-sacred artifacts, Mu Chen had expected it, so he didn't mention it further. His gaze shifted to 9 Nether. There was no pretense between him and 9 Nether. With a casual glance, 9 Nether took the sea-shattering pearl and said, "The Crimson Dragon Battle Spear and Armor are a set. If separated, their power will diminish, so I'll leave them for you." Mu Chen nodded thoughtfully. It seemed that Xia Hong's defeat had indeed sent a strong deterrent. Otherwise, they might have been constantly harassed by various forces testing them. Also, we've received news from the Great Luo Heaven Domain today. Our Northern Realm Alliance forces should arrive within 5 days, Tanya reported. Mu Chen let out a slight sigh of relief. The top forces from all over had gathered in this far western land. Every person seemed to be backed by powerful influences. If the Mandala forces didn't arrive soon, Mu Chen would have to be extra cautious and try to remain low profile to avoid attracting the attention of any Earth Supremes. If he lacked a big figure of equal standing behind him, it could become troublesome. Also, the intelligence you instructed us to gather has been completed, Tanya said, holding a scroll of parchment and respectfully handing it to Mu Chen. Good, Mu Chen praised with a smile before accepting it. Over the past few days, he had asked Tanya and the others to gather intelligence, with the main focus being the so-called Young Power ranking. After leaving the Northern Realm and entering the Tianluo continent, he realized the weight that the Young Power ranking carried. The individuals on this list truly represented the peak of the younger generation in the Tianluo continent, each with impressive achievements that made them impossible to underestimate. Mu Chen unrolled the parchment. A shimmering light flickered on it, and at the top, the character's power ranking materialized. The light then revealed more writing. Rank 20, Mu Chen, from the Northern Realm's Great Luo Heaven Domain, half-step 9th grade. Master of the mysterious Supreme Dharmakaya, extraordinary combat ability. Famous for defeating Xia Hong, the 4th prince of the Great Xia dynasty. In the West City, the first line made Mu Chen freeze. He hadn't expected to see his name at rank 20. It seemed that the rankings were updated in real time, changing immediately with any major events. Xia Hong had previously been ranked 20th, but after his defeat, Mu Chen had taken his place. Mu Chen shook his head, not caring much about the ranking. He continued reading the information as it appeared. Rank 19, Lu Shan, direct disciple of the mountain-suppressing sect, initial 9th grade, cultivates the 10,000 mountains demon-suppressing physique, strength capable of moving mountains. Rank 16, Wang Tongsten, rank 13. Lines of text kept appearing, each representing a young prodigy with a strong reputation in the Tianluo continent. Their abilities and battle achievements were impressive, and Mu Chen was surprised to see that they were as strong, if not stronger, than the prodigies he had encountered in the Divine Beast Plains. As the list continued to unfold, Mu Chen's expression grew increasingly serious. The rankings had now reached the top 5. Rank 5, Qin Jingzhe, young master of the Green Lotus Sword. Sect, peak 9th grade. Cultivates the Green Lotus Sword Sect's Supreme Sword Physique, ranked 49th on the Supreme Dharmakaya list. Battle record. Once single-handedly fought 3 peak 9th grade Supremes without defeat. To be able to fight 3 and remain undefeated, impressive. Mu Chen couldn't help but exclaim. While the record didn't mention Qin Jingzhe winning, the fact that he had remained undefeated spoke volumes about his strength. The 5th rank was certainly well-earned. As Mu Chen marveled. His eyes narrowed as another line appeared. Rank 4, Xia Yu, Crown Prince of the Great Xia Dynasty, peak 9th grade, cultivates the Great Heavenly King Dharmakaya, ranked 45th on the Supreme Dharmakaya list. Battle record, reportedly possesses strength comparable to a perfect 9th grade Supreme. The Great Heavenly King Dharmakaya, Mu Chen's gaze sharpened. This Supreme Dharmakaya was even stronger than the 9 fiendish heavenly beast physique Xia Hong had cultivated. Xia Yu was truly worthy of being the crown prince of the Great Xia dynasty. Though the record wasn't detailed, the phrase comparable to a perfect 9th grade Supreme said it all. It seems that in the future, if I encounter this person, I should exercise a bit more caution. Ranked 3rd on the strongest list, Garuda, holy son of the sacred demon palace. His mysterious Dharmakaya has no specific rank, but is incredibly powerful. The last time he acted was a year ago, when, with his peak 9th grade strength, he hunted down and killed a rebellious elder of the sacred demon palace who had reached 9th grade perfection. Now, it's suspected that he has reached 9th grade perfection. Evaluation. Unfathomable. Mu Chen stared at the text for a long while, not shifting his gaze. Garuda, indeed a fierce opponent. With just peak 9th grade strength, he could slay someone of 9th grade perfection. If he. The great battle in West City, even days after its conclusion, continued to be a hot topic throughout the city. The news even spread further, reaching the far western land, where many powerful figures gradually became aware that within West City, there was a young powerhouse from the northern domain's Great Luo Heaven Domain. Mu Chen's name also started to be noticed by more and more forces, albeit unintentionally. However, as his fame spread, Mu Chen didn't seem to care. After defeating Xia Hong, he no longer rushed to leave West City. After all, this place was now a hub for news, and due to Xia Hong's crushing defeat, no one dared to disturb the city easily. The quiet environment was just what he needed. Thus, over the following days, they stayed in West City. Yet, Contrary to expectations, they kept a low profile, not using their victory over Xia Hong to make a big splash in the city. With their low-key approach, the gazes that had been constantly monitoring them gradually shifted away. After all, the far western land had gathered countless geniuses from Tianluo continent, and such events were happening all the time. People didn't have the patience to focus on just one person. After all, Mu Chen had only defeated Xia Hong. He hadn't taken down the crown prince of the great Xia dynasty. Inside a quiet courtyard. Boom. Suddenly, a vast spiritual light erupted in the air. Countless intricate spiritual seals fused into the void, intertwining and forming dazzling, complex beams of light. These beams seemed to outline an ancient and profound pattern. Mu Chen stood within the immense spiritual array's nascent form. He narrowed his eyes, staring at the myriad of complex beams. In the next moment, he flicked his sleeve. Several white beams shot out from his hand. As the beams shot out, there was an almost imperceptible dragon's roar. Upon closer inspection, one could see that within the white light were several bones as white as jade. These bones faintly radiated a dragon's might. These were dragon bones. As these dragon bones entered the nascent spiritual array, a tremendous change occurred. Waves of terrifying spiritual power began to condense wildly, eventually gathering around the dragon bones. Buzz, buzz. The spiritual power inside the array became increasingly violent. Fine cracks appeared on the dragon bones, and in a moment of wild trembling, they shattered with a loud bang. Boom. A violent shockwave of spiritual power surged outward, destroying the entire spiritual array in an instant. Mu Chen sighed in disappointment as he witnessed this. With a flick of his sleeve, overwhelming spiritual power formed a protective shield, blocking the shockwaves. This Grandmaster-level spiritual array, even when incomplete, is so difficult to construct. Its complexity is beyond belief. A small mistake, and the formation collapses. Mu Chen's expression grew serious. Over the past few days, he had been trying to set up the incomplete 9 dragons devouring immortal array, but the results were regrettable. He hadn't succeeded even once. Mu Chen shook his head, not disheartened by the failure. He could feel that with each failure, he became more aware of where he went wrong. As long as he could fine-tune those small errors, he believed he could successfully set up the incomplete Grandmaster-level array. However, it would still take some time. Another failure? From behind, Jiuyu, who had been meditating, opened her beautiful eyes and looked at Mu Chen. This is a Grandmaster-level spiritual array, and because it's incomplete, it's even harder to comprehend. To have deduced the array in such a short time is already quite impressive. In the stone pavilion, Lin Jing lazily reclined on a soft blanket, holding an ancient book. Judging by the cover, it wasn't for cultivation, but rather a record of rare and exotic fruits from all over the world. As she flipped through it, her eyes sparkled with both interest and envy. She glanced at the dissipating spiritual array in midair, and a hint of curiosity flashed in her gaze as she spoke. Although she wasn't a spiritual array master, her background was exceptional, and she had often interacted with renowned grandmasters of spiritual arrays. Thus, her discerning eye was quite remarkable. She was well aware of how impressive it was for Mu Chen to have deduced this unfamiliar, incomplete Grandmaster-level array to this point in just 10 days. Mu Chen smiled faintly as he looked at Lin Jing. His expression was calm, not showing arrogance. Has the number of people keeping an eye on this place decreased recently? Mu Chen asked as he walked into the stone pavilion, turning to Tanya, who stood respectfully to the side. Tanya nodded and smiled. Although there are still some who haven't given up, they no longer dare to watch us openly. This was probably the most powerful supreme physique he had encountered so far. Judging by his own surprise, if the Great Sun's indestructible body were ranked among the top 99 supreme physiques, it would likely fall around the 30th position. About on par with the Flame God physique. I didn't expect the young clan leader of the Flame Spirit clan to be training on Tianluo continent as well, Nine Nether remarked, sighing at the power of Zhu Yan. Zhu Yan of the Flame Spirit clan? Lin Jing suddenly looked up, a hint of surprise in her voice. You know him? Mu Chen asked, equally surprised by her reaction. Lin Jing pouted slightly. The Flame Spirit clan and my Ice Spirit clan, led by my Aunt Bing, are sworn enemies. So, I know a little about them. To be precise, Zhu Yan is just one of the candidates for the young clan leader. He's not yet the true leader. He's currently training outside, probably trying to break through to Earth Supreme and return to the clan to compete for the position. Mu Chen nodded slightly. He had heard that the martial ancestor in the martial realm had 2 wives. One was Lin Jing's mother, the beautiful woman who had a cold, ethereal aura. and the other was the current leader of the Ice Spirit clan. Lin Jing's Aunt Bing.it seemed like she was the latter. Although the Flame Spirit clan has some power, they're pretty average. Otherwise, they wouldn't have lost their clan's sacred fire in a bet with the Flame Emperor. Even after waking up the slumbering ancestor, they still couldn't stop the Flame Emperor, Lin Jing remarked. Her tone clearly indicated her lack of fondness for the Flame Spirit clan. You're talking about the Flame Emperor from the Boundless Fire Domain? Mu Chen's mind stirred. The last time he had met Kai Xiao in the Northern Realm's Dragon Phoenix Heaven, it seemed her father was none other than the Flame Emperor. Yes, Lin Jing nodded enthusiastically. That Flame Emperor is truly formidable. Even my father says he's unfathomable. They fought before. Mu Chen asked curiously. The martial ancestor and the Flame Emperor were both top figures in the Great Thousand Worlds today. It was said that they both came from the lower dimensions. But their achievements had made even the heavenly supremes of the Great Thousand Worlds look inferior. The question of which of these two peak figures was stronger was perhaps one of the greatest mysteries of the Great Thousand Worlds. Lin Jing shrugged. I've heard my father mention that they probably fought before, but he never said who came out on top. Also, the Martial Realm is guarding the extreme southern region of the Great Thousand Worlds, while the Boundless Fire Domain is in the far northern region. These two areas are incredibly important, so my father and the Flame Emperor rarely leave their posts, which makes it hard for them to spar. Why? Mu Chen asked, puzzled. Lin Jing glanced at him and said, because those areas border the extraterritorial clan's territory. Mu Chen's heart trembled, and his expression turned serious. Now he understood why the Flame Emperor and the Martial Ancestor, despite their abilities, did not choose to rule over a supercontinent in the central region of the Great Thousand Worlds, but instead built their forces in such remote locations. They had done so deliberately, creating a barrier with their own power to keep the extraterritorial clan firmly outside the Great Thousand Worlds. My father's lower dimension, where he came from, was once within the domain of the extraterritorial clan's influence. That's when a branch of the demon race invaded. At that time, my Aunt Bing burned herself to help my father. After my father defeated the demon race, he moved from the lower dimension to the Great Thousand Worlds. Using that lower dimension as a base, he established the Martial Realm. While guarding that lower dimensions, he also ensured the extraterritorial clan couldn't extend its reach into the Great Thousand Worlds, becoming a barrier between the two worlds. Lin Jing said slowly. The Martial Ancestor is truly impressive, Mu Chen couldn't help but exclaim. Although he had heard vague stories about the Martial Ancestor, he had never known the details Lin Jing had shared. It left him deeply moved. During the war with the extraterritorial clan, even countless powerful figures from the Great Thousand Worlds had to endure numerous bitter battles and sacrifices to protect the world as it is now. However, the Martial Ancestor was able to use the power of the lower dimension to defeat a branch of the demon clan from the extraterritorial clan, breaking through the dimensional constraints to arrive in the Great Thousand Worlds. These feats are nothing short of legendary and deeply inspiring. Of course, Lin Jing said proudly. She clearly held her father in the highest regard. Mu Chen smiled faintly. Having such a father was indeed a source of pride for Lin Jing. The peace they now enjoyed while honing their skills in the Great Thousand Worlds was likely due in large part to the efforts of figures like the Martial Ancestor and the Flame Emperor, who guarded the borders of the world, holding back the terrifying forces of the extraterritorial clan. This alone earned Mu Chen deep respect. From what Lin Jing had shared, Mu Chen could sense that at the highest levels of the Great Thousand Worlds, there was a powerful layer of protection, one that involved beings like the Martial Ancestor and the Flame Emperor, who were at the peak of the world. However, such information was too exclusive, beyond the reach of ordinary powerful figures in the Great Thousand Worlds, including Mu Chen. He too was not yet qualified to access such knowledge. Still, he believed that one day he would be able to touch that level. But for now, he needed time. Mu Chen took a deep breath, calming the turbulence in his heart, and slowly withdrew his gaze from the parchment in his hands. To truly step onto the path of the peak, he knew that the evolution method for the Great Sun indestructible body was something he must obtain. His fingers gently brushed over the rough parchment as he stared at the words that represented the top figures of the younger generation in Tianluo continent. He lightly tapped them. The road of a strong individual requires overcoming the competition that continuously appears along the way. Over the years, he had cut through the thorns and emerged victorious, never falling behind, and this time would be no different. Mu Chen's eyelids lowered slightly, and deep within his eyes, a burning battle intent flared. These young prodigies let others see this little figure from the Northern Spirit Realm, from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, from the Great Luo Heaven Domain, whether or not I have the qualifications to meet you head-on. As time passed, the extreme western regions of Tianluo continent grew increasingly lively. In every city along the border, forces from all directions gathered, and occasionally, even legendary figures at the Earth Supreme level, who were once rarely seen, could be spotted, attracting countless admiring gazes. It was under this atmosphere that Chen finally received word that the forces from the Northern Realm Alliance had arrived. Rather than arriving at West City, they went straight into the interior of the extreme western lands, the area closest to the heart of the region, where the ancient heavenly palace was said to have first appeared. It was rumored that the top forces of the world had already surrounded the area, their gazes sharp and watchful. After receiving the news, Chen and his companions, including Jiuyo, immediately departed West City and headed toward the location of the Northern Realm Alliance forces. As for Lin Jing, she followed along. She was someone who enjoyed excitement, and with the ancient heavenly palace being one of the most sensational events on Tianluo continent, she naturally wanted to join in on the spectacle. By the time Chen and his group arrived at the Northern Realm Alliance's encampment, it was already late afternoon. The setting sun cast long shadows across the barren mountains. In the midst of the rolling peaks, a solitary towering mountain stood, and it was here that the Northern Realm forces had set up camp. As Chen and his group approached, he immediately sensed dozens of sharp gazes aimed at them, scouts, whose power was formidable. Likely at the 7th or 8th grade level. Chen was surprised by the strength of these scouts. It seemed that the Northern Realm's top forces had spared no effort in this operation. These sharp eyes obviously recognized Chen, so they quickly allowed him to pass through the defenses and ascend the lone peak. Upon reaching the summit, Chen immediately saw the petite figure of Mandala, who had evidently sensed his arrival and was waiting for him. I didn't expect that just a few days would be enough for you to make a name for yourself on Tianluo continent, Mandala said, teasing him with a smile. She had clearly heard about the conflict between Chen and Xia Hong. After severely injuring Xia Hong, the great Xia dynasty is likely not going to be pleased, Chen said with a slight smirk. If trouble comes, then let it come. If the Xia Emperor of the great Xia dynasty is capable of causing trouble in my great Luo Heaven domain, then I'll face it head-on, said Mandala, unbothered. With her current strength as an Upper Earth Supreme, she clearly wasn't afraid of the Xia Emperor. However, the Xia Emperor, proud of his status, likely won't take direct action against you. But the Crown Prince of the great Xia dynasty is no small threat. If you encounter him, you'll have to handle it yourself. Mandala added. If the Xia Emperor didn't target Chen, she wouldn't interfere with Xia Yu. Once these young ones got involved in disputes, things always turned more complicated. As long as the Crown Prince of the great Xia dynasty isn't yet an Earth Supreme, I'm not afraid of him, Chen replied with a confident smile. Though he was only a half step away from 9th grade, and the Crown Prince might already be at the peak of 9th grade, he wasn't sure Xia Yu would have the upper hand if it came to a fight. Looks like there are quite a few people here, Chen said, glancing at the mountaintop. There were tents scattered around, and he could faintly sense the oppressive fluctuation of spiritual energy emanating from within them, as if the very air was trembling. Mandala nodded. Besides me, there are 5 lower Earth Supremes. Chen clicked his tongue in awe. This many powerful beings almost equaled the entire lower Earth Supreme force of the Northern Realm. It seemed these forces were quite eager to get their hands on the ancient heavenly palace. If they joined forces, they could rival the top factions of the Tianluo continent. Even the great Xia dynasty probably couldn't boast a lineup of 1 Upper Earth Supreme and 5 Lower Earth Supremes. However, there was a catch. This lineup didn't truly belong to the great Luo Heaven domain, so their fighting power would be compromised. After all, everyone had their own agenda. Still, at least when facing outside threats, the Northern Realm Alliance could make a difference. By the way, this is my friend, Lin Jing, Chen introduced, turning to the woman behind him. Mandala had noticed Lin Jing from the start. What surprised her, however, was when she sensed the spiritual energy inside Lin Jing's body. She detected a faint resistance, a subtle yet tangible pressure. It seemed like someone with immense power had left a protective mark on this girl. Mandala nodded at Lin Jing, a golden gleam flashing in her eyes. It was clear that this girl had quite a remarkable background. The mark could only have been left by someone who had reached the perfect level of Earth Supreme. Lin Jing smiled and waved playfully at Mandala, her gaze curious. It seemed she hadn't expected the ruler of the great Luo Heaven domain to appear as such a cute and beautiful young girl. When can we enter the ancient heavenly palace? Mu Chen asked. Since everyone had gathered, it was time to figure out how to enter and claim the treasures inside. Mandala shook her head and led Mu Chen to the edge of the mountain, pointing toward the distant horizon. Mu Chen followed her gaze, and his expression shifted. Beyond the range of mountains lay a vast, desolate plain. The grassland stretched endlessly, but deep within, the space seemed shattered. Fragments of space swirled through the air, sharp as blades. Anyone below Earth Supreme who touched them would be instantly torn apart. The space deep within was turbulent, raging like an ancient beast ready to devour anything that came near. Amidst the cracks in space, Mu Chen could faintly glimpse ancient palaces, their overwhelming aura giving off an air of mystery. Now, around this wasteland, top forces from all directions have gathered. But no one dares to venture in, Mandala said, her gaze fixed on the chaotic space. Why? Mu Chen asked in surprise. While those spatial fragments might pose a deadly threat to those below Earth Supreme, Mandala and her group should be able to enter without issue, given their strength. The space there has already been stretched to the breaking point by the ancient heavenly palace. So, once someone of Earth Supreme level steps in, the space will reach its maximum capacity. At that moment, the space will explode. And even an upper Earth Supreme will find it hard to withstand the destructive shockwave. If one is unlucky enough to be trapped in the collapsing space and loses their direction, they will likely be banished to the void space. If their luck is good, they might stumble upon a lower dimension and survive. If not, they will be completely obliterated, Mandala said with a grave expression. Mu Chen couldn't help but inwardly click his tongue. He hadn't realized the danger was this severe, but it sounded similar to the divine beast plains. A place where no overly powerful beings could enter. So, what's the plan now? He asked. Within the ancient heavenly palace, there is only one place that can accommodate Earth Supremes like us without causing the space to explode, Mandala said slowly. Where is that? Mu Chen asked, stunned. The tomb of the heavenly emperor, Mandala pronounced each word carefully. Hearing this, Mu Chen's heart jolted, and he already suspected, is that where the heavenly emperor fell? Mandala nodded. The tomb of the heavenly emperor was personally built by the heavenly emperor. It's like its own world. If the heavenly emperor fell, he would have undoubtedly fallen there. Mu Chen nodded lightly. 4 Earth Supremes. What attracted them most in the ancient heavenly palace was likely not some powerful sacred artifact, but the heavenly emperor's unrivaled divine ability. The one Qi transforms 3 purities. Clearly, the only way to acquire such a divine ability was to take it from the fallen heavenly emperor. So, the most likely approach now is for the powerful figures from various factions to temporarily open a passage, allowing those the space can accommodate to enter. Mandala fixed her gaze on Mu Chen and continued. For example, if you can enter the tomb of the heavenly emperor, you'll need to crush this item, and we will use it as a foundation to tear open the space and enter the tomb. As she spoke, Mandala's small hand opened, revealing a jade stone that shimmered with spiritual light. A faint spatial fluctuation emanated from it. Mu Chen took the item and breathed a sigh of relief. Without those Earth Supremes, this would obviously benefit his actions within the ancient heavenly palace. You're also interested in the one Qi transforms 3 purities? Mu Chen mused, rubbing the jade stone. But I'm afraid, when the time comes, there will be too many people vying for it, and it won't be easy to obtain. Once such a divine ability emerges, all Upper Earth Supremes will likely be fighting for it, regardless of friend or foe. Not only will they need to guard against other strong figures, but even within the Northern Realm Alliance, the Earth Supremes will need to be vigilant. After all, if they can obtain it, they would consider abandoning everything in the Northern Realm to secure such a treasure. Mandala, however, surprisingly shook her head, her golden eyes fixed on the shattered space deep in the wasteland. That divine ability isn't something just anyone can obtain, nor is it something anyone can cultivate. Mandala's eyelids lowered slightly as she spoke softly. My main purpose for entering the ancient heavenly palace is to find my true body. Mu Chen's pupils suddenly contracted, and he stared at Mandala, shock and confusion written on his face. You're not your true self right now. If she wasn't her true body, then why did Mandala seem so real? Nothing like a spirit manifestation. What is your true body? He asked. Mandala glanced at Mu Chen and smiled faintly. I am a flower that the Heavenly Emperor planted when he was alive. I am a flower that the Heavenly Emperor planted when he was alive. Mu Chen stared at Mandala's smiling face, and as her words echoed in his mind, his expression stiffened, slowly turning more and more incredulous. That look was almost comical. But it wasn't just his face. Inside, Mu Chen's thoughts were in turmoil. He had always been curious about how Mandala knew so much about the ancient heavenly palace, but he never imagined that Mandala was actually a flower planted by the Heavenly Emperor. Of course, this flower was certainly no ordinary one. Hard to believe? Mandala smiled and asked, her golden eyes fixed on the ancient palace that flickered faintly in the spatial rift far off in the distance. My memories were once suppressed, but as we get closer to the ancient heavenly palace, my memories have been gradually recovering, and now, they are almost fully restored. Then what exactly is your true form? After a long pause, Mu Chen finally snapped out of his shock. Swallowing hard, he asked with some difficulty. Mandala turned her head slightly, casting a meaningful glance at Mu Chen before slowly replying. You should be familiar with it. From my name, can't you guess? Hiss. Mu Chen couldn't help but inhale sharply, his voice filled with disbelief. Your true form is the ancient Mandala flower? In the great thousand worlds, there exists a divine flower called the Mandala flower. This flower is extraordinarily mysterious, with innate intelligence. If it reaches its peak, it rivals even the greatest divine beasts, and in certain aspects, it might even be more powerful. However, this divine flower is extremely rare. Once it appears, countless powerful factions will vie for it. After all, if one could nurture it, it might one day produce a being on par with the Heavenly Supreme, this moment. Mu Chen finally understood why Mandala's gaze had been so strange. He remembered that within his body, there existed a black paper known as the Page of Immortality, which recorded the cultivation method for the Great Sun indestructible body. Moreover, it also had an ancient Mandala flower divine mark imprinted upon it. If it weren't for this divine mark, Mu Chen would have long been consumed by the Nine Nether, losing his intellect and consciousness. It seemed that he had quite the connection with this Mandala flower. I am a fragment that detached from the bud of the main body. In a sense, I am not the spirit form you think, but a true existence. Mandala smiled. This is the marvel of the ancient Mandala flower. As long as we aren't completely destroyed, we can survive in another form. Mu Chen couldn't help but inwardly marvel. Such a method. Even some grand Earth Supremes wouldn't be able to achieve this. You are just a fragment, yet possess the strength of an upper Earth Supreme. How strong must your true form be? Mu Chen immediately thought of an important question. If a human powerhouse wanted to bestow their spiritual power to reach upper Earth Supreme, wouldn't they have to attain the Heavenly Supreme level themselves? Could Mandala's true form have already reached the Heavenly Supreme? Mandala seemed to know what Mu Chen was thinking. She shook her head and said, at my peak, my true form was only a grand Earth Supreme. After all these years, my strength has naturally weakened. Fortunately, I haven't been idle these years and have worked to compensate for this, maintaining my power. Grand Earth Supreme. Mu Chen sighed. That was already quite impressive. After all, even in the Tianluo continent, Grand Earth Supremes were extremely rare. When I first separated, I was extremely weak. Combined with the curse within me, my strength was only about on par with a 5th or 6th grade Supreme. I must thank you. Though, if it weren't for you, I would have been forced to sleep for years. Suppressing the curse. I wouldn't have been able to break through to the upper Earth Supreme. And without that, even if the ancient heavenly palace returned, I wouldn't have dared to appear. Mandala's golden eyes looked at Mu Chen, a trace of gratitude in her gaze. Mu Chen scratched his head in response. He hadn't realized just how much he had helped Mandala. But he quickly moved on, asking, why wouldn't you dare to come before reaching the upper Earth Supreme? He sensed a subtle fluctuation in Mandala's words. Did you forget my enemy? Mandala said lightly. Mu Chen's heart jolted. You're worried about the Saint Demon Emperor Lu Yuan. It all made sense now. Lu Yuan had the strength of an upper Earth Supreme. If Mandala didn't have the power to resist him, appearing would certainly invite conflict. Who exactly is he? Mu Chen asked seriously. According to Mandala, both she and Lu Yuan came from the ancient heavenly palace, so why did they have such deep enmity? Lu Yuan had even schemed to plan a terrifying curse within Mandala. Mandala's golden eyes narrowed slightly, a dangerous glint flashing in them. He is an ancient blood flood dragon. And he is also the Heavenly Emperor's mount. Mu Chen's heart shook again, his eyes widening in disbelief. Lu Yuan was the Heavenly Emperor's mount. But why did the mandala flower that the Heavenly Emperor planted end up fighting to the death with his mount? Mu Chen couldn't figure it out. After all, both Mandala and Lu Yuan were originally from the ancient Heavenly Palace, right? Back then, the Heavenly Emperor fought the Demon Emperor of the extraterritorial clan. In the end, he sealed the Heavenly Emperor's tomb, and the entire ancient Heavenly Palace was devastated. What exactly happened? I don't know. All I remember is that when my intelligence returned, the ancient Heavenly Palace had been destroyed. The only ones who still had their wits were me and Lu Yuan. But when we searched the Heavenly Palace, Lu Yuan suddenly attacked me and cursed me. I had no choice but to sever my branches, seal myself, and escape from the ancient Heavenly Palace. Why does he want to do this? Mu Chen asked, his expression changing slightly. Mandala frowned as well, and after a moment, she spoke. All the hall masters of the ancient Heavenly Palace have perished. Many of the palace's inherited treasures remain, especially the Heavenly Emperor's inheritance. If one could obtain it, it might even lead to a breakthrough to the Earth Supreme level. I believe he must want to monopolize the palace's inheritance. Mu Chen nodded. That made sense. After all, the allure of the Heavenly Palace's inheritance was strong enough to drive anyone mad. But Lu Yuan's ambition was truly no small matter. I'll keep an eye out for you when we enter the ancient Heavenly Palace, Mu Chen said. No matter whether Mandala was a clone or her true form, it didn't matter much to him. If he could truly help her retrieve her original body and restore her strength, it would be highly beneficial for him. Mandala nodded. She wasn't surprised by Mu Chen's response. After all, over the years, she had built a high level of trust in him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have confided such a secret. By the way, can you help me figure out the origin of this? Mu Chen suddenly remembered the mysterious token he had obtained at the auction. He took it out and handed it to Mandala. Since she was from the ancient Heavenly Palace, she should have some knowledge about such things, right? Mandala's golden eyes turned to the ancient and mysterious token. A thoughtful expression crossed her face, and after a while, an unusual glint appeared in her eyes. Do you recognize it? Seeing her reaction, Mu Chen was immediately startled and then asked eagerly. Mandala didn't reply right away. She took the token and examined it carefully for a while before fixing Mu Chen with a strange gaze. Where did you get this? That's actually how I ended up having a conflict with Xia Hong from the Great Xia dynasty, Mu Chen replied. This truly seems like a profitable deal, Mandala remarked leisurely. Your luck is something I even envy. What is this thing exactly? Mu Chen asked, his curiosity piqued by her tone. Mandala stroked the token, and after a long pause, she slowly said, If I'm not mistaken, this should be a military token. A military token? Mu Chen's heart skipped a beat. To be precise, it's the token of the Soul Slaughtering Guards, an elite army under the command of the Second Hall Master. During the ancient times, they were known for exterminating Earth Supremes, Mandala explained. Soul Slaughtering Guards? They exterminated Earth Supremes? Mu Chen was taken aback, and a look of wild joy immediately appeared in his eyes. No wonder he had felt a subtle and somewhat familiar strange fluctuation from the token. Now, after further sensing it, he realized it was clearly a wave of battle intent. However, this excitement was short-lived. Mu Chen's brows furrowed as he thought about the situation. While the soul-slaughtering guards were indeed powerful, thousands of years had passed. No matter how strong an army was, it would have turned to dust by now. What good would it do? Mandala saw the change in Mu Chen's expression and understood what he was thinking. After a moment of contemplation, she spoke, not necessarily. The armies within the ancient Heavenly Palace practiced strange cultivation methods. It said that when some warriors perished, their spiritual energy would merge with their bodies, transforming them into beings with only instinct, no intellect, similar to puppet warriors. These puppets would only listen to the command of the military token's master. I believe that within the second hall, there might be some of them still existing. Mu Chen's gaze flickered, and he nodded inwardly. He made a mental note of Mandala's words. If he could enter the second hall, he would need to be more cautious. If he could control some of the soul-slaughtering guards, then in the ancient Heavenly Palace, even when facing a true Earth Supreme, he would have the strength to fight back. With this thought, Mu Chen's heart grew more fiery with excitement. When can we make our move? Mandala raised her head, her gaze drifting towards the distant shattered space. She smiled faintly and said, 5 days from now, the space here will stabilize a little. That will be the time to send you into the ancient Heavenly Palace. Mu Chen nodded. He looked up, his eyes burning as he gazed at the ancient palaces that flickered in and out of view through the fragmented space. All these years, he had finally waited for this day.